So, why do men willingly walk into pain? It's a question that literally cuts right to the absolute core of the human experience, isn't it? I mean, why is there this deep, almost existential drive to face impossible battles, to endure intense hardship, or to step onto a battlefield, often for a prize they might never actually live to see? Just think about our reaction to it. Why do we all have this universal, instinctive admiration for warriors, revolutionaries, explorers, and martyrs? Across all cultures, across all eras, there's just something incredibly moving about watching someone stand completely alone against the world, holding the line for what they believe in, even when the odds are totally insurmountable. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking the fascinating source text, Men and Struggle, the Philosophy of Purpose. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to take an objective look at the underlying philosophy of why the masculine psyche so often seeks out struggle. We'll explore the historical, psychological, and existential reasons behind this undeniable drive. All right, Section 1, The Hunger for Struggle, Why Endless Comfort Falls Short. Our source material makes a pretty bold observation right off the bat. It argues that comfort has never fully satisfied men. Now, you'd think utopia is the ultimate goal, right? Just kicking back and relaxing. But the text points out that even in the most peaceful, prosperous times in human history, comfort actually tends to leave a profound void. There is this relentless hunger deep inside us, not just to simply exist, and not just to survive, but to prove that our life actually stood for something. Because of this restless energy, it's fascinating what naturally happens. When a society is peaceful, men will artificially construct mountains to climb. If there isn't a natural struggle, we literally invent one. We're talking intense physical competitions, extreme challenges, all-consuming missions, and massive high-stress goals. It's like the psyche fundamentally demands chaos to confront, just to fulfill a deep-seated psychological need. And this brilliantly illustrates the core psychology at play here. As the text puts it, not because suffering feels good, but because overcoming it feels real. Take a second to really process that. It's not some masochistic desire for pain. Nobody inherently wants to hurt. It's the pursuit of undeniable reality. The resistance itself, the pushback from the world, is exactly what validates the human experience and confirms that yes, you are alive and you are capable. Moving on to Section 2, Redefining True Glory, Beyond Applause and Attention. We live in an era that constantly confuses glory with fame. Modern fame is entirely external, right? It's driven by social media attention, public applause, and this constant need for validation. But the source sharply contrasts this with real glory. True glory is entirely internal. It's about internal courage. It's the quiet ability to answer the call when life suddenly demands it, and standing your ground when absolute fear arrives. It's that profound private realization of simply being able to say to yourself, I did not run. This is exactly why we still deeply revere historical and modern archetypes. Spartans holding the pass at Thermopylae, samurai bound by strict honor codes, revolutionaries, pilots, firefighters, and explorers like Ernest Shackleton leading his men across the brutal Antarctic ice. We don't admire them just because they survived. Actually, a lot of times, they didn't. We admire them because they willingly accepted the terrible cost of their duties. They embodied that internal courage we just talked about, prioritizing their mission over their own safety. That is what resonates with us so deeply. Section 3, The Danger of Comfort, Confronting the Male Ego. In modern conversations, the male ego is frequently framed as inherently toxic. However, the source approaches this through a much older, almost Jungian psychological lens. It defines the male ego neutrally as an ancient drive to feel capable, useful, and strong enough to confront chaos. It's framed as a literal evolutionary necessity. Without this feeling of utility and strength, the text argues, individuals often find themselves feeling completely spiritually adrift. And this builds into a very specific and a highly dangerous cycle of restlessness. Step 1, there is a lack of a meaningful battle or purpose. Step 2, this absence leads directly to feeling spiritually lost or empty. And step 3, well, that pent-up, unchanneled energy doesn't just quietly vanish. It ferments, and eventually it turns destructive. The source issues a very stark warning here. A man without a purpose doesn't necessarily wake up wanting destruction, but because his energy has nowhere worthy to go, that restlessness sours. He may turn that frustration and anger inward against himself through destructive habits, or he might turn it outward against society or against others. The lack of a constructive burden creates a highly volatile void. Section 4. The meaning of sacrifice. Finding freedom from comfort. Consider this incredibly powerful quote from the text. There is something more important than survival. Think about that for a second. It is the absolute ultimate rejection of mere comfort. It's a bold statement that living purely to stay safe and just consume resources is simply not enough for the human spirit. Fundamentally, true glory isn't about fame, and it's not even really about ego in the traditional sense. It's voluntary sacrifice in the pursuit of something deeply meaningful. It's looking at a ridiculously heavy, difficult load and choosing to pick it up anyway, simply because the cause demands it. Which brings us to Section 5. Choosing meaning over fear. The antidote to emptiness. We are facing a really stark contrast today. On one side, we have modern emptiness. In much of the world today, we're surrounded by endless comfort, having literally everything we could ever need physically, except a reason to fight. On the other side is the innate desire for a worthy mission. The text argues that many men fundamentally do not just want fleeting happiness. They actively seek a burden worth carrying, a mountain worth dying on. They want a real reason to use their strength. Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought to reflect on. Is glory simply the exact moment a man chooses meaning over fear? It's a profound perspective on the fight against nihilism, suggesting that our greatest fulfillment comes not from what we consume, but from the struggles we voluntarily choose to endure. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this has helped you look at the human drive for purpose in a whole new light. Think about the burdens you carry and why you choose to carry them.